Welcome to the podcast where we discuss all about Bethlehem and its future. I'm your host, Ryan Conrad. We're diving into the stories, ideas, and people that make our community shine. So let's talk Bethlehem. Well, this is our first kickoff of Let's Talk Bethlehem. I don't know where this is going to go, but I thought it would be fun because it's been an interesting past couple months. And I would love to start these things off by just saying, tell us a little bit about who Josh is. I mean, I feel like a lot of people think, okay, I'm a commissioner of the county, and there's not a human being behind the element, right? So
yeah,
just if we're going to share this with people, let people, if you're comfortable with it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Tell people a little bit about yourself, your family, whatever you want to share just about yourself, for people who don't really know who Josh is.
Well, trying to keep it brief. I'm a lifelong resident of the Bethlehem community and Alexander County, other than when I was away in college. When we first moved back after college, I actually did live in Catawba County for a short period of time because there were no houses to buy in Bethlehem that I could afford, or that my wife and I could afford. But went to Bethlehem Elementary School, West Alexander, when it was junior high, obviously, to show my age. Alexander Central for high school. Went to college, went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Realized how much I missed playing golf, so ended up transferring to Gardner-Webb, where I was good enough to play golf.
Nice.
Wasn't good enough to play at Chapel Hill. But anyway, married my high school sweetheart, Molly. She's from Taylor. She was a preacher's kid, so she was from a lot of places, but she lived in Taylorsville. We met in high school. We got married before we finished college. Moved back as soon as she graduated, which was basically the end of the summer session, because she wasn't far behind me. Started out in the insurance business, working for my dad, selling insurance at Bethlehem Insurance Agency. Didn't really like working for my dad.
That's a tough one. Working with families always can be tough.
He was the boss, and I thought I needed to be.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
So made a jump into the real estate business, which my grandfather had been in the real estate business, and his company was Bethlehem Realty, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. But jumped into the real estate business, reopened my granddad's company. About 2 years into it, decided that I wanted to get a contractor's license. So then I've been a licensed general contractor since the end of 2002.
Nice.
That's what I do for my day job. That's how I feed my family. Speaking of family, I have 7 children.
Wow. I feel like a lot of people don't know that.
Yep. We have 7 kids, 3 biological, 4 adopted. They range in age from 23 to 4. 2 are finished with college, thankfully, but still have 5 at home.
I have to say, I've got one 5-year-old, and that's almost too much.
It's
sometimes
it's a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge. But wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely it's not what I pictured for myself. Let's just say that. But
it's a very admirable thing. Yeah.
Well, we try to, like I say, never intended on it being 7. And that's another story for another day.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, I grew up in Bethlehem, member of Bethlehem Baptist Church. It's where my family went to church. It's where we basically, I've basically gone to church my entire life. I remember a lot of things about the little Bethlehem community that, a lot of people don't. Obviously, I'm not the oldest original, oldest original member of the population, but I have a lot of great memories from childhood. Love where I live, obviously, because I decided to come back here, which most of my friends that I grew up with after college, they didn't come back here.
It's sort of a similar situation for me too.
Right, and that's something that that's nothing new, and that still goes on. Still goes on today. I've said, one of Alexander County's greatest exports is its educated minds, and that's there are some limitations on jobs here, and but anyway. I'm about as deep-rooted, I guess, in Bethlehem as anybody. So that's sort of my story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, I guess let's get down to the brass tacks, so to speak. I think it's a little bit of an elephant in the room, but, there's been a hot button there for a while about incorporating Bethlehem, and I thought it would be just a great opportunity to sort of talk about the future of that. I'm trying to think of I've always been sort of a glass half full kind of guy, and I'm not just doing that just to say hey, this is. I've just always sort of tried to see the positive in things, and
right.
I really have felt recently there's just a tiny little group of people that have really been. I don't know the right word for it. It's just a little bit of a going against the grain of what I would say being prolific things happening in Bethlehem that I see are great things,
right,
and positive things. And I don't know. Let's just go from there. I get your overall just testing the waters. What do you think about this whole thing that's happened in the past couple months?
Well, I've had a lot of people ask me, "What do you think?"
Yeah,
and I've had a lot of people.
I know it's such a broad question.
I've had a lot of people, ask me more detailed questions about different aspects of the, possible incorporation, and and I've made this statement publicly. I feel like it's a small group that is trying to make a decision for the majority. I understand. I understand. One thing I try to do is I try to play devil's advocate,
right,
with any situation, and and try to understand both sides of an argument or a negotiation or whatever it may be. And I understand. I understand there are folks that are very, very happy with Bethlehem the way it is. To be honest, I am too. But I don't know that we can or want to stop progress. I
can vouch for that.
Yeah.
I love seeing something new or exciting come up in Bethlehem. Something as small as, and it's not really small, but the Marina restaurant down here.
Right.
We love going down.
Oh yeah, and it obviously does very well because
we had our reunion there this October. We had a blast. It was so much fun. So much fun.
My 30th high school reunion is this year.
Oh, okay.
So I'm starting to realize that I'm not as young as I used to be. But
yeah.
But no, I think some things we have control of, some things we don't. With being a county commissioner, I learned really quick that there are a lot of things we don't have control over. Even the county government doesn't have control over. The fact that 127 needs to be widened. There needs to be a second bridge, across the lake. And I agree with that 100%. I agree there needs to be a second bridge. I agree with, needs to be a 4-lane road. I'm not crazy about how DOT has spec'd it out because, I don't think it lends itself to community, but that's not my call, And with 127 widening, the state obviously sees growth. State obviously sees change. If you look at, the population information, you look at statistics, Bethlehem's grown in the past, 30, 40 years, way more than any of the rest of Alexander County, as well as it's grown, larger percentages than Hickory or Catawba County, or, and there's a reason that it's grown. It's because people want to live here. Yeah. People like the convenience to Hickory. They like the rural feel, I think. They like not having city taxes.
Yeah.
And Bethlehem is one of those places, my dad has told me a story. When I say a story, when my dad was in high school in the early 1960s at Taylorsville High School, before Alexander Central was built, he was made fun of because he was a hick because he was from Bethlehem, because there was nothing here.
Yeah.
I
think that's almost the opposite now.
Absolutely, it is. Down, and he's told me, he's like down Rink Dam Road and River Hills Court, and where a lot of the lake out, where a lot of, down Rink Dam Road where the largest percentage of people live, and down River Hills Court and all that. He said, you didn't go down there, unless you were looking for a fight, a card game, or a date.
Yeah,
and he was made fun of because he was from Bethlehem. So Bethlehem was just this hole in the wall, nothing there. And from about mid 1960s on, Bethlehem, has grown much faster than the rest of Alexander County, and is now, the biggest population center in the county, including Taylorsville. Bethlehem, what's considered Bethlehem is significantly bigger than the town of Taylorsville. And, with that, do we want to stop that? Do we want to prevent that? Do we want to say, haha, we live here and you can't?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the incorporation talk, honestly, I think is selfish. It's just people being selfish. And
I can tell you the one of the biggest problems that I have, and I feel like it's just the biggest glaring thing that's going on between this, and it really boils down to two people. And I know I've talked to them before. They're pretty reasonable people. They're nice. I've spoken to them before. They're almost our next door neighbors. They're just across the channel here. But I think it really just all boils down to that they're upset because they're having to drive about half of a mile through what's going to soon be a lot of high-density housing, and all that wooded area is going to be gone, and it's going to be somewhat in their backyard. But
well, and I like to say, the folks that are heading up the incorporation effort, I've gotten to know them. Good people. I don't have anything, I really don't have anything negative to say. The development that brought all this up, and I'm trying to remember the name of the building company, Taylor Morrison. The first time I saw, and I'm a county commissioner, but people I think there's a misconception about what all we're hands-on involved with.
Yeah. I've heard that it's been curated and set up by everyone inside of the county commissioners and realtor agent and all this stuff. It's a big inside job to just get richer. That I mean, it gets.
I've heard it all,
been blown
and I've
so
seen
out
it,
of proportion.
and I've had people, send me screenshots from Facebook and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But this is honest truth. The first time I saw the layout for that neighborhood was a screenshot somebody sent me from Facebook, and it was a Facebook post, against the proposed development. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the first time I'd seen the layout of that property, or what they were proposing to do. And you use the term high density development. Well, actually, if you look at how big the issue with that neighborhood, and it's not really an issue, but just the fact is that piece of property is so big. I mean, it's 218 acres, 211, 218 acres. You can put a golf course on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a monstrous piece of property. And, and I think, and what they proposed, if you break it down, I think it was 400, this is bad, don't even remember. I think I've tried to block a lot of this out of my brain. 455 houses, something like that. Or
that sounds about right.
Or dwelling units.
Yeah, it's been a while for me too.
So I mean that's not that far north of 2 units per acre.
Yeah.
I mean, we have other neighborhood, other subdivisions. Wittenberg Springs.
Yeah.
Wittenberg Springs average lots, 15,000, 16,000 square feet. So that's 3 lots per acre.
You know what I thought?
And
this is so random. Sorry, go ahead.
But and so, and then, and the fact that, and I guess the high density thing comes from, the way they've laid it out, which is, I think they call it pod development, where you've got, areas or, street with a lot of stuff really close, but you leave part of the, part of the property undeveloped, part of the property undeveloped.
Right.
And, and I see that, I'm in the construction business, and I see that from a development standpoint, that makes absolute sense from a developer standpoint, because that's less infrastructure. That's less water lines, less sewer lines, less streets, less curbs, less sidewalks, less, and all those things add up to money. Yeah. And, and at the end of the day, this is a developer builder that they're trying to make a dollar, and I don't want that to sound like it's, trying to make a dollar is an evil thing, because that's, that company making a dollar is paying everyone that works for them,
right.
And all the subs they employ. And, and so, but anyway, and I'm kind of getting off subject, but, I understand why, people not wanting more traffic. I understand, people not wanting a lot next door to them that's always been woods,
right.
to be anything other than woods, but, this isn't a very nice thing to say, but if you want to control your neighbor, you got to buy your neighbor.
Yeah. Well, and beyond that, I know for a fact, I didn't know that all that huge tract on the other side of the road, up from the road down, about halfway down, was all owned by, it's a guy, he's the investor from Asheville. I can't remember his name. You know who I'm talking about? It's his name is on the deed.
It's well, and to tell you who he is, I say, I don't know him.
It took me forever to get his contact
I did
information.
meet. I have met him. I met him. I was first elected to the commission in 2014, and another commissioner and I were asked to meet with the county manager and an engineering firm in Hickory because what's his name? Anyway, he owned that property.
He's a really nice guy.
And Bruce Alexander.
That's it. And he's been letting people, four-wheel and trail for almost a decade.
Well, anyway, I actually met him in probably 2015. That's the only time I've ever seen him in person, the only time I've ever talked to him. But I met him in like 2015 at in this little joint meeting because he was looking to develop that property. And that's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that time, he was looking at trying to do it himself.
Yeah.
And it was more of a Wittenberg Springs type, but, which really would, decimate the landscape more than, what these current guys have proposed.
Because you wouldn't have those open spots of free land.
Right, and I think, and I understand, but anyway, I learned really quickly when I got into, use the term public service, but when I first got on the county commission, and actually was on the school board for 8 years prior to that, but I learned really quickly that, two people are going to have two opinions, and and that's okay. And one thing that I've had to learn is, you and I can have a completely different opinion on the same topic, and that's okay. And just because you have a differing opinion, doesn't make you less of a person than I am, or vice versa, And so, it's one of those, hey, let's put on our big boy britches and agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And if you have 100 people in a room, you got 100 opinions.
Yeah.
And so, and I understand. I say understand. I feel like I understand. Why there are folks that don't, that don't want, a big neighborhood anywhere close to them. I understand the traffic concern. I understand, but but the process that a developer goes through is, it's what's the term I'm trying to find?
Have to dot every T and cross every I.
It's very detailed.
Yeah.
And it's not, and it's not a situation where there are two people that say yes, or that there are five people that say yes.
Yeah.
There are regulatory agencies, one lined up after the other, and and so. I don't know. I don't want to be the one that that tries to halt progress.
Yeah.
And just to kind of get back to the selfish, me feeling like it's selfish, or to some degree. I got a couple. I've gotten emails and phone calls. People. Especially early on in this process, when the county, to kind of give you a little background on the process, the county has a planning department. Planning department does their job. Basically, they verify that everything meets the requirements and such as that. Then it goes to a planning board. Planning board are, in Alexander County, it's five people. They're community at large, community at large folks. They try really hard to have all parts of the county represented. And, currently that's the case. The planning board makes a recommendation. The commission has to basically put a, yep, you did your job seal on it.
Yeah.
The commission doesn't typically get into the nuts and bolts, or, and it's, because we're a policy, we're an oversight policy board. Our job's not to get into the nuts and bolts. That's why there are county employees to do that. That's why there's a planning department. That's why there's zoning ordinance. That's why there's that's why there's a subdivision ordinance. That's why. But anyway, early on in the process, I remember one email very clearly, and I won't mention where the people live, or anything like that. But they do live on the lake. And one of their arguments was the lake needs to be left natural. There doesn't need to be any more development on the lake. And I'm thinking to myself, the people that, these folks sent me this saying that we don't need to cut more trees down around the lake. We don't need to develop any more property around the lake. Live on the lake. Okay? And I really wanted to email them back. And this is just, I tend to wear my emotion on my sleeve. I try not to, but deep down, it's really hard for me not to do that. And especially of the members of the county commission, I'm the guy that says what he thinks.
Yeah.
And I've said some things that I regretted saying. Believe me.
If only I knew other people in public office that always said what they thought, and he's wildly popular. So,
but I really wanted to email those folks back and just say, well, if you're so concerned about the lake and and the environment, maybe you should tear your house down and and plant some trees. And I think it just that particular instance rubbed me the wrong way. Because it was, I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
Yeah.
It was, I have this and I want this, but nobody else should be able to have it.
Right. That just saying it like that pisses me off.
And it did. It pissed me off. And, not to say there weren't other people that had legitimate good arguments, because there are. I mean, there are negatives that come with anything new.
Yeah.
I mean, there are positives and there are negatives.
Right.
From the county's perspective, we, and this is, I'm a Bethlehem guy, but I'm an at-large member of the Alexander County Commission, which means, there are people, I assume, maybe in Stony Point that voted for me.
Yeah.
No, I represent every citizen in Alexander County.
Yeah.
Sure, Bethlehem's my favorite. If you had to say, well, which community is your favorite? Well, that's a dumb question.
You grew up here. You have
I live here.
Business, family. Yeah.
And and so that's, but if Alexander County as a whole needs something, it is more tax base. And and I've said that to some people, and they're like, well, it's just all about the money. And I'm like, well, it does cost something to have a sheriff's department, to have ambulances that crank when you want them to, to have
a splash pad.
Not just ambulances and police cars, but the services that the county provides, the services that the city of Hickory provides, the services that the state of North Carolina provide. There has to be money to pay for those things. And one of the biggest problems we have in Alexander County is lack of tax base, because we're small, we're rural, we do not have an interstate. We're not on a body of water where we have a port. And sadly, from the county's perspective, we're almost at needing to lean on residential development, because residential development creates commercial development.
Right.
The businesses follow the people.
Yeah.
And, and so, just to kind of sum it up, I'm not going to be the guy that says, no, we don't want people to move here.
Yeah.
And no, I don't want anybody, I don't want anybody else living here, because that's just not, big picture, that's not what I think needs to happen. I feel like we do need to have some control of the growth. And I feel like, there are parameters and there are, there are things in place currently, to control the development. But, we'll see.
I've got
see what happens.
Yeah, I've got a really good point. Let's take just a quick 2-minute break, and we'll come back and I want to tell you about this because I think it's pretty interesting.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
We're back. Oh.
So this is my biggest problem that I have with the entire situation, and it's not so much what they're doing; it's how they went about it. And I'll start this by saying, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, early 2000, they were looking at it, trying to incorporate. I think Joe Harbison was on the board at that point, a few others, and
Right.
They put out sent out a survey to everybody in Bethlehem and said, "Is this something that you guys want?" And I think it was fairly unanimously no. And so I'm pretty sure that's correct. If I'm not, I'll probably hear it in the comments here. But I'm pretty sure that at that point, and I have a larger point to this, is saying like they were asking the community, "Is this something that you guys want? We're looking into it." And maybe at that time, Hickory might have been interested in potentially Annex in Bethlehem, and I mean, and that's fine if that was the motive at that point. But
Right.
But the motive here is a couple people don't want to drive through high density housing to get to their home or have to deal with maybe a little extra traffic. It's another thing where I even did a video driving down 127 at the busiest time, and it didn't hold a candle to what Mooresville and Charlotte and the rest look like. But that's a whole other point too.
We must think along the same lines of it, because I videoed myself driving from my office in downtown Bethlehem down Rink Dam Road at 4:30, and until I got to River Hills Court, and I still have video, but I think there were 7 cars past me.
Yeah, there's a little bit. I mean, it does
anyway.
get backed up to some extent.
Sure, absolutely.
Nothing even close to Charlotte. I mean, we all don't realize how good we've got it. We really don't. But on to my main point of, so I'm going to recap. In 2000, they gave a consensus to Bethlehem. They asked them, "Is this something that you want?" And they said no. And I'm pretty sure they backed off of that because they didn't want, the rest of the county didn't want it. So let's fast forward to now. The issue that I have is they are working in the shadows, whether they want to admit it or not. And one of the biggest thing that bothers me is it just so happened to happen and it's convenient for them during the election. Mm-hmm. And they were having early election, and there were people out every single day hitting older folks that have no idea what this is going on. And they're just saying, sign this paper or you're going to lose Bethlehem, and there's going to be skyscrapers all along 127. And I've heard it all. It's been wild. It's been a while. I think November was a wild month for this. And they were riled up. They were upset. I get why they're upset.
Right.
But if they just would have said, "We don't really like this. Let's rally together. Let's find who can represent Bethlehem if we do incorporate." Instead, they're going in the shadows getting signatures from old people that don't know what's going on, and they're self-electing. They're electing themselves to be the mayor of Mayor Cheese of Bethlehem, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So not only do they not want to find out if the rest of the county actually wants this, they're appointing themselves to run it. And that's been my biggest problem from day one about it, is just how they've gone about it. Because I've said on multiple occasions, incorporation might not be a bad idea, but not right now. I mean, because it's just, we don't need to. If Hickory tries to annex us, it's not like they come like Russia and said, "It's ours, we're taking it." There's a vote, and there's a lot of things that go on, and we could be like, okay, maybe now's the time to incorporate, but don't impose more taxes after it just went up a couple years ago on people with fixed incomes, people that are already like really tight. You have to think about all those things. But, we've got a couple people that are living fat and sassy, not literally, but, living a good life. And now they want to impose more taxes on everybody else just because they don't want to drive through. They want their beautiful forest. They said forest, or woods, or whatever. Okay, so I'm off my horse. Well, that was my point. So I'll shut up now and let you talk.
I mean, to my knowledge, there have been a couple different attempts, or I don't say attempts. There have been a couple different times in the past 30 or so years where there was talk of Bethlehem incorporating and or the city of Hickory annexing Bethlehem. One thing, I kind of, well, let me say this. I don't know how many years ago, a few years ago, I was on the commission at the time. There was some talk about Bethlehem being annexed by the city of Hickory. And, the thing about the city of Hickory annexing Bethlehem, to kind of give you my take on this, there are a couple major hurdles. The most glaring being judicial districts. And that's something most people don't think about. And I didn't think about this myself either. But, yes, we buy our water from the city of Hickory. Every water line, every sewer line that's in the ground in Bethlehem and Alexander County belong to Alexander County. They belong to the Alexander County government. But we do buy our water capacity from the city of Hickory. Well, water is the cash cow of any and all municipalities, counties, anybody that can produce it. And the city of Hickory is already making their money. They're already making money on water from us. The other services that they would, if the city of Hickory annexed Bethlehem, they'd have to provide the exact same services, everything that they do in the city of Hickory. So that means maintaining the streets. Obviously water, sewer, trash pickup, police, fire, and they have paid fire. Zoning, planning, building inspections, street lights.
I have
the list goes on.
Street lights
right.
In a minute.
But the list goes on and on. But the biggest hurdle is the judicial district, because Bethlehem obviously is in Alexander County. Well, the judicial district, which is hard for me to say 43 times, our judicial district is basically Alexander and Iredell counties. Okay, Hickory's in the Catawba County judicial district, which means if the Hickory City Police were to arrest somebody for shoplifting at Shaggy's, they can't take them they don't go to court in Hickory. They go to court in Taylorsville or Statesville. And when this came up last time, the chief of police in Hickory said, "There's no way that I'm going to send my people, officers and such, all the way to Taylorsville or to Statesville to go to court. We can't afford it." Also, looking at incorporating Bethlehem, the only thing they're going to pick up is residential. Well, City of Hickory has a lot of commercial, a lot of industrial tax base. Of the three types of property: industrial, commercial, and residential. Well, four types: industrial, commercial, residential, and farmland. They kind of go in that order when you're looking at tax generation for the city or the county or the municipality, whomever. And so I really don't feel like the city of Hickory has much desire. I mean, and I've had I mean, over the past few years, I've had a couple conversations with, council people and, we have a great relationship. The Alexander County has a great relationship with the mayor. The mayor, Hickory, he's a great guy. Yeah. And, and we've had the conversation. I mean, I've had the conversation with Hank Guest, hey, we're great neighbors. When we opened the swim beach and the park at the lake, Hank Guest came. The mayor of Hickory came to Alexander County, outside the city limits of Hickory. Has nothing to do with Hickory.
That's cool.
But he came, and we had a really good conversation, kind of after the pomp and circumstance, which really there wasn't much. But, but he was just like, this is great. Because, it's not like we have a gate that doesn't allow people from Hickory to come to our swim beach.
Right.
Or to come to, or to come out there and, put a boat in or picnic or, whatever they want to do. And so I really don't feel like Hickory has much interest.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I'd like to circle back a little bit. I just wanted to ask about, and maybe we don't know the answer to that, but I feel like we do. The one thing that just baffles me is they want to take on lighting. And it was originally, to my understanding, that if they're going to incorporate 23 square miles, which is all of Bethlehem, I originally thought, then how are you going to light 23 square miles or all the road systems? And they're like, right. No, that's not how it works. You just have to do it within this, the inner part, or I don't know. There's some fine line about that. But beyond that, they're saying we don't have to do anything with lighting. We'll just use the existing lighting. And I'm thinking, existing lighting. Now, if you drive up and down Hickory, there's lighting on private property like Lowe's, that whole convenience center where Shaggy's, Lowe's, There is no street lighting at all.
There's not.
So you can't maintain something that doesn't even exist.
And I heard the exact same thing.
Okay.
And and I'll just be, I'll be brutally honest.
Yeah.
I have a video of one of the folks that's very pro Incorporation talking to someone, about signing the petition. That includes them saying, we don't have to put up any streetlights.
There aren't
in
any.
So many words. And I'm going, okay, well, how is, how is streetlights one of the required services that you're going to provide, but you don't have to do it?
Yeah.
And, and I had the conversation with county manager, Alexander County manager, who came here from Maiden, the town of Maiden. And he told me the town of Maiden, which is nowhere close to as large as what Bethlehem would be if it were incorporated. I think he said the town of Maiden's budget for lighting for their streetlights, and it was well over $1 million a year. Mm-hmm. And that's the town of Maiden. But like I say, we can.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit.
Kind of going back to your, wanting to incorporate to protect Bethlehem from itself and to protect Bethlehem from Hickory. And
I think it's more of incorporate so a few people can control Bethlehem. That's really what it. I mean, that's what it boils down to, if you ask me. Another point that I've made to quite a few people. One of the main reasons that the pro incorporation folks want to incorporate is to do away with quote unquote high density zoning or high density development. Mm-hmm. And they want to go back to
a 15-foot side setback. My first point on that, or my first thought is, have you polled every single person, and does everybody have a problem with that?
Mm-hmm.
But
that goes back to the survey.
Okay, but then
problem.
my second point is, they want to go back to this zone, go back to what, they use the term go back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our previous zoning ordinance that was replaced by the current, there was a residential zoning district in our previous zoning that had 8-foot setbacks. So they're not wanting to go back. They're not wanting to go back the way it was. Mm. And I think a lot of it's been presented as, this was done, by some specific people, which that's not the case. Mm. But they want to go back to the way it was to prevent, the way it was
closer.
Yeah.
Because isn't Oliver's Landing, aren't there a few houses up there, up by the clubhouse? I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I'd have to, I don't want to, I don't know.
I remember that was the first time I saw it. I was like, you can reach and touch each other house.
But there are obviously people that don't mind living that way.
Yeah.
Because if nobody wanted that,
they wouldn't be
if nobody
houses.
wanted that, they wouldn't, every town and city in the United States wouldn't be growing, because that's really the only type of development that's going on these days.
Have you seen the newer ones that they're building? Like the newer high density housing, like in certain areas in Charlotte and all this other.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't look bad.
No.
I mean, they're not an eyesore. I mean, you can drive down. Well, I'm not going to single anything out, but I'll just say, they don't look. It's not an eyesore to me.
No, and
I do love woods. I love nature,
sure.
And if I want a property with privacy, I'll go to the mountains and buy like 20 acres where I know nobody's going to build anything around me.
And if a person has the means to do that, that's another consideration that I don't think many people have really given much credence. Is everything's gotten really expensive.
Yeah.
Everything's. I mean, nobody knew that, and I know I just enlightened everyone that everything's all of a sudden gotten expensive.
Yeah.
But with my day job, I mean, it's really obvious that construction and development has gotten really, really expensive. Housing has gotten really expensive.
Oh, I remember right after COVID when it subfloor was about $60 a sheet.
Oh, well, I mean, just and I could give you so many examples of what I was paying for stuff 3 years ago versus what I'm paying now. It's unbelievable. I mean, and it's not all materials. It's labor. It's everything. Well, with all those costs being what they are, there aren't that many people as well. Well, not just the cost, but land costs a lot more than it did. And if you have the means, sure. If you want to buy 20 acres and build a 4,000 square foot house right in the middle of it, great. Mm-hmm. But most people don't have the ability financially to do that.
Yeah.
And
it's giving people an opportunity to be a homeowner.
Right. And, and I'm, when in the real estate business, a starter home is $300 down. It wasn't that many years ago. I was building starter homes in Bethlehem and selling them for $130,000. Mm.
I bought my first home, down on Spencer Lane. I think it was. It was a foreclosed home, but it was like $80,000.
But it wasn't that long ago that I was building 3-bedroom, 2-bath, specs to sell. I was building 3-bedroom, 2-baths with a double garage. Sell those suckers for $130,000, $140,000. And now, the same house, and it's not because it's not because profits way better or anything like that. But that same house now is $325,000.
Yeah.
Well, so we kind of have to consider what's the world making us do? I mean, and when I say what's the world making us do, we need housing that people can afford to buy. And, we need housing for the people that want to move here.
Yeah.
And, and if that means that houses have to be a little closer together because dirt's more expensive, I mean, it's, we live in a capitalist free market society.
It's just a temper tantrum.
That's
what I keep telling
and
everybody.
it's just, yeah. I mean, there's no, there's no clean, there's no black and white. There's no, this is the good answer. I mean, it's just, nobody's going to be, there's no way everybody's going to be happy. There are a lot of things I'm not happy about. I'm sure there are a lot of things you're not happy about.
I mean, well,
that's just the way it is.
Just a little context, we're sitting right here in my studio, and we're down Bowman Court.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not affecting me. I mean, we'll drive through a little bit.
I'll say I drove right past the property we've been talking about to come here.
You know what the funny thing is, and then we'll move on because I think we got like maybe 10 more minutes or something,
Yeah.
but and then we'll talk about. I've got a couple like positive, like exciting things I wanted to ask you about. So
that'd be good.
But the first thing that I thought when I found out that they were going to do this was like, yes, my 5-year-old son Jack is now going to be able to walk somewhere and be able to trick or treat. Because there's going to be so many houses they can go in and out of, and we won't have to go to Wittenberg Springs. And it's just a madhouse
where everybody else goes.
Yeah. But anyways, I glass half full guy. That's me.
Yeah.
But so let's talk just for the last little bit that we got. Some really exciting. I'm personally super excited about this, and it's the new ball field renovation.
Yep.
You want to tell us a little bit about that? And
I'm excited about it. And I mean, just like everything else in Bethlehem, I have a history. I can say I was the concession stand manager at the Bethlehem ballpark. Basically, as soon as I was able to drive myself down there, was a great way to meet people. And I'll say I could, back in the day we used to use 2-liter drinks in styrofoam cups and ice, and I could pour 2 2-liters at the same time, man. Anyway, no, Bethlehem Park has been in a dire need of renovation and/or 2 cherry bombs.
Yeah,
one of the two.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's been getting really pretty rough.
And the county, we were able to find some grant funding that could be used. Believe it or not, the grant funding that's being used is an economic development. It's economic development money, or grant, or the
Don't say.
Because things like parks and things that make life, that intend to make life better for people, is actually considered economic development by, the state and the feds and those folks. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. One of the most important things is it's going to be a lot safer. It's going to be completely ADA compliant. What was the old baseball field, or what we call the big field? That's going to be strictly soccer.
That's the one up top.
Yeah, the bigger.
Nice. That's awesome. I was hoping there would be something. My son loves soccer. I played soccer all through schools.
And the there were a lot of things that need to be dealt with other than just saying, hey, that we're changing this field. There was an unbelievable amount of grading issues that need to be fixed, because there was erosion and all kinds of stuff. And it's actually, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's going to look like a different place. But there was a lot went into it that, you know, you're not necessarily going to notice with the naked eye. But, you know, where the big field was, that's going to be soccer. At this point, we really feel like we can fit 2 soccer fields in there. That's the plan. The lower...
That's a big field up there.
Yeah, it is. The lower, but and it's been used for soccer. And
I've played on outfield.
I mean, that's, you know, it was the outfield of the baseball field.
Yeah,
and
that's
it just, you know, wasn't what it needed to be. The old concession stand that was the concession stands being, you know, obviously being completely redone with a significant amount of, you know, picnic area, covered picnic shelter with, you know, where people will be able to congregate. And, you know, the concession stand obviously will be able to do things it couldn't do before in the way of, you know, making better food and such and serving people better. Bathrooms, I don't know. I mean, I know you've been in the bath, you know, I'm sure you've been in the old bathrooms down there. They were horrible and disgusting, and didn't matter how hard somebody tried, there just wasn't a good way to make them decent.
Right.
But, you know, obviously bathrooms, you know, are much, much bigger. The one thing I'm kind of stoked about, the playground. The playground is, and I don't hold me to this, probably 3 times the size it was.
Wow. Jack's going to love that.
And the playground equipment is legit. You know, I mean, it's not stuff from Sam's Club.
Right.
And not only is it really cool, but, you know, there are ADA elements.
Safer.
You know, there are elements for, you know, disabled children. You know, parking lots being redone. The tennis courts are being, you know, redone and turned into
pickleball.
6 pickleball courts. It'll basically be 6 pickleball courts, 2 tennis courts, and the end tennis court will also have basketball goals. So,
very cool.
And, you know, batting cages. But biggest thing is it's going to be a lot better place to take your family. You don't have to have kids, you know. I mean, just to go out there, you know, enjoy the outdoors. And
we need that.
Yeah, you know, and obviously, you know, I have kids that play recreation sports, and, you know, your son does too. And, you know, just, I mean, having a better place for everybody to go. I mean, it's going to be neat. And I'm, you know, somehow, like all government projects, let's just say that, I still have a really hard time with government timeline because, you know, I own a business, and I'm all about get it done. That's what I do all day long.
Yeah.
And somehow I haven't been able to make the Alexander County government
work faster,
move a lot faster.
Yeah.
You know, and but the park was supposed to be finished by end of the year. It's not, you know, that didn't happen, but they're still planning on it being ready for early April for spring sports and such to kick off, which is going to be nice.
And I've got a little bit of a teaser I can put on that one and say that some family ties have told me a little bit of insider information about something about maybe a spring fest of some sorts or some grand opening little festival party that's going to happen there. So
yeah, I think I heard that too, but we won't steal any thunder.
Yeah. But so that's going to be exciting too. So I'm looking forward to that. Awesome. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming in and talking with me. And I hope that we can do this again and have a different conversation maybe.
Yeah, I'll say this is my first podcast.
I have to say this is mine too.
You know, so, I don't quite feel as cool as Joe Rogan.
I was hoping that I'd be a better host. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll get better as we go.
But
yeah.
I'll say I did enjoy it. And like I say, I have a problem with spewing at the mouth. And
it's okay.
And talking too long. And The county commission gave me a hard time. They were like, "Your meetings," and I'm like, I can't help. There's a lot of stuff to go over.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate it, man.
Yeah. All right.